nothing but the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds began to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff. While you're breaking me down, you can feel your feet.
Hello and welcome to The Smoking Spot, a really good podcast about weed. I'm Ryan Herron here in Portland, Oregon.
And I'm Amanda Breeze in Toronto. And on today's episode of The Smoking Spot, we are catching up on some scent news and cannabis news and fun smells of the month. So that is today.
Fun smells of the month. I would have made a list. You should have told me.
I just got so nervous. I just became hyper aware that we're recording video all of a sudden. And I was like, whoa.
You're like, better throw some words in. Speaking of, we have started a YouTube channel. You can catch us there now too. So if you've never seen us before, you can go there and say, well, that's not what I imagine they look like. And I think it adds to it. Amanda's doing a really nice job of cutting out some little clips of the show so you can sort of get a preview of what we're talking about. And hopefully those things catch on and draw more people to the show. So that's why we're doing it. Go there, share the links.
Yeah, I'm stoked. So welcome to another episode. We've got some pretty banging smell news updates. You know, Ryan, you were telling me about something about surveying teenagers. And honestly, I'm dying to know what that was about.
Oh man. Okay. So we sat down and we did some research or, our independent, let's call it research on what we're going to talk about for the show. And that was just like talking about scent and aroma and cannabis news and kind of catching ourselves up and catching everyone up. And the New York Times has this, I'm not going to call it great article because it's certainly not that, an article that is essentially, if you want to know what the trending scents and fragrances are right now, ask a teen boy. Some Gen Z kids can't seem to get enough of these luxury fragrances. So this very well might be some sort of like marketizing type article. But really it was just talking about how younger and younger kids are using fragrance as a status symbol sort of a thing. And because they have to somewhat educate themselves on these things, like 14-year-old boys are like, oh, hey, I really like the honey notes in this like polo scent. So I was getting ice cream with my family over the weekend when the sun was out for 15 minutes. And all of a sudden we're all like, oh, what is that boy smell? And we all knew exactly what we were talking about, which is like that terrible Axe body smell. I know it's called something other in other countries. Is it still Axe in Canada?
No, I knew exactly what you were talking about as soon as you said teenage boy smell. Like,
right? It's like thick to the point that it's clearly trying to cover something up. Usually they're sort of this like aqua soapy smells, and they're usually terrible. They have gotten better. I will say, because I'm at Target or whatever, I want to smell all the deodorants. That's like some dumb thing I need to do with my nose. And I will say like the Axe type products have gotten better in the last few years, but boy smell is still a very real thing.
Yeah, it brings to mind weird descriptors like power.
Yes.
More like stench,
Yes.
It's really artificial and nasty and overpowering and overbearing, suffocating, really. So that's interesting. Okay, but they seem to think, I follow a lot of smell nerds on TikTok. I'm on kind of that side of TikTok. And I have noticed there are a lot of young men who are really keen on exploring colognes and smells. But I would love to see some more teenagers dabbling in natural perfumery, actually, instead of going the brand route.
Right.
I would really love to see, like, what if I asked a young, like a Gen Z or what's a hot smell? I don't want them to be like, naming some like Dior, Chanel, whatever. I want to smell like bergamot and undertones of oud. Like, I'd like to get some more natural perfumery in the mix.
So, I think we're kind of getting there. This is like an anomaly, and it's some young boys who do a TikTok with their father, who's the real cologne hound here. But I'll just pull this one quote from the article. In one video, Bentley, who's in 4th grade, grips a $100 bottle of Victory Elixir. This has notes of vanilla, caramel, and tonka, he says, referring to the South American legume. Yeah, anyone who's smelled tonka, which was outlawed, which was, you were not able to use it in American products for the longest time. And then they just loosened up the regulations on tonka like 10 years ago.
Huh.
So for some kid who's barely been around for as long as you could like use it in the States to call out the tasting note, you know, it's kind of fun. I think we're getting there. And I think we're going to get away from the sort of boy smell sort of thing, and maybe into some more sophisticated scents for young men. And, you know, maybe it's not for clout, and it has to be some Tom Ford that they're spraying on. But like you said, the kids find that they like some vanilla scent, so they go for like an Accord or something interesting.
Interesting. Well, you know, I did see this week some of the trending smells that are happening right now in perfumery. A lot of them are leaning towards natural aromatics. So like really natural florals. Like we're really seeing this shift moving away from synthetic fragrances, you know, like let's say something called like Opal. You know, that's not, Opal doesn't have a smell,
Yeah.
but you kind of, it brings to mind like a certain aromatic when you hear it, because it is common. I'm just throwing out words here, but
No, I think that's like the perfect example. I have like an instant idea what Opal could be. And it is the sort of things they name synthetics. A lot of times things are just called like molecule number 3. And you just know that, oh, okay, that's like the baby powder one.
yes, exactly. So, but I saw that now a lot of natural fragrances are trending. Basil's on the up and up,
Cool.
In terms of flavor and fragrance. I saw a lot of delicate citrus florals. So if you think of like neroli being like a heavy citrus, jasmine being like a heavy floral, or jasmine being neroli is a citrus floral. Anyway, these are
No, I
more,
get you. And I think jasmine can be suffocating as well, though I do like
super
it.
suffocating. So
Yeah.
these are like milder, more uplifting, crisper, springtime. I mean, it's spring. We want to smell, you know, the gentle, welcoming breeze, not necessarily the overpowering skunks of things. So, yeah, I've been seeing some new trends. So I'm surprised actually if tonka was a trender, because I feel like that's actually the opposite.
No, I mean, we're talking vanilla, caramel, the whatever he was talking about. I have to go look up what it actually was. It was more of a wintry scent for sure.
Yeah, come on, like winter this time of year.
Yeah, hey, I've been reaching a lot more for, like you said, the citruses, the things that are lighter or brighter, or if like you're going to be out in the sun, you're not going to be killing everyone because it's just super intense. And so, hey, let's talk about weed a little bit too, because one of the articles I found was just about how the cannabis scent is becoming a huge trend in fragrance. And that has sort of been luxification of the scent.
Okay.
Right. So I found this on covature.com, and it's just, so we all want to smell like weed now is the name of the article. And yeah, it's kind of fun. I think that this is probably a good place for Amanda and I to start maybe trying to collect some decants of these. I'll just read off a few. Boy Smells, the brand. I love that we just were talking about Boy Smells, and then this fragrance brand is like, oh yeah, we're called that. But they do a fragrance called Italian Kush that is citrus and hemp, and it's supposed to be like reminiscent of smoking something on the Amalfi Coast. So it's kind of like Italian scents there. We've got an Open Sky by Braedo, which has Palo Santo, cannabis, vetiver, pomelo. I think that we see that sort of grapefruit scent pop up in a lot of these bouquets, because I mean, if you've ever had some like grapefruit scented herb, it hits, you know, that there's definitely a good connection there.
Wow, that sounds really good, especially like that earthy lineup, vetiver, you know, that's like a nice resinous grass, and mixed with the Palo Santo. That sounds so good.
Honestly, there's a lot of good blends here, and the way they kind of lay it out are like, hey, these are just the main notes, gives you like a really good idea of what cannabis is sort of mixing well or playing well with. Those are like green top notes, like green watermelon, and then we get some of those kind of more oily center base notes. There's like vetiver, sand grown vetiver, which I'd never heard before. Maybe you can tell us more about that, Amanda.
I cannot. I don't know what to say about that, but I honestly, I kind of love that they wrote that because it is very descriptive. It immediately took me to like the Oregon, sandscapes of the Oregon coast, fresh grasses in the salty ocean breeze. Like maybe, sand grown vetiver is like the realist OG.
Right. I love it. So, I mean, hey, this is fragrance. So it's like 90% marketing. Like, let's be real. Like that's what that whole industry runs on. But there's some fun sense there and probably some things that we should get our hands on and get our noses in and actually like talk about on a future show. But it's really trendy now. And 10, 15 years ago, where everything we smelled was like a really dank Otto's jacket from The Simpsons hemp note. Now we're seeing things that are a lot grassier and like mentioned terpenes specifically and are blended with like top notes and florals and citruses.
I don't have the full ingredients list in front of me from what you described. Like it's giving pretty standard perfume formulation where you have like a nice mix of the base and the top notes. And the thing about that is that the top notes, like a pomelo, is going to fizzle out throughout the day because it has those like lighter molecules that burst at first and then fade faster. So like top notes generally just like fade faster. And then the base notes, the resinous, linger. And so you'll be keeping that nice grounded aromatic of like the grasses. And I mean, technically, like on average, I'd say most like cannabis essential oils, like if you just kind of chord the fragrance of cannabis, it would be a middle note. Like generally herbaceous things tend to be middle notes. So if cannabis is like somewhere in the middle and then you have like some grasses and resins and then some citruses and light florals, like that's the perfect recipe for a natural perfume.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun because a friend shared for me Muji, which is a Japanese company. They have a big store here in Portland. Their spring clothing line is like 70% hemp fabric, which is pretty fun. But all of the iconography and messaging and marketing around it just shows pictures of these little purple flowers because they're still not using cannabis leaves or hemp plants or whatever in their advertising of their product, which is just that.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it is kind of funny to also look at the marketing for these fragrances and see how much they are leaning into and away from the actual plant itself. Because clearly, like they're using it as a tool, as a hook to get your attention, either by nose or because you're interested in a product, you see some relation to cannabis.
Interesting. So do you think they're like just avoiding imagery, or do you think that's like are they like can of greenwashing the product to like drive the stoners to purchase, or are they actually celebrating the aromatics?
No, I think it's the opposite. I think it's in the same way like Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop might use hemp in a skincare type thing. It's like a wink at folks who have had some familiarity with cannabis, but not necessarily like, hey, come get Bob's Black Light skin cream. That leaning away from the stoner aesthetic.
Interesting. Okay, that's a vibe. I mean, they sound good. They all sound really good. So I would be curious to see what they smell like. I've also been really curious about that 1969 brand that popped off a few months ago, and they're also celebrating cannabis aromatics. I will say, without having smelled any of these products, just judging purely for the sake of judging, I'm seeing like way too much like patchouli and a lot of these types of mixes. And I'm like, I get it, hippies, patchouli. But there's other grasses, even vetiver. Like, I'm actually a really big fan of vetiver. On top of it smelling really complex, it is also very grounding and sort of energetically, if we can go there. It's been used a lot to help reduce headaches because it just has this like really generous, grounding scent, which makes me love it. But also, I see it in a lot of products. I see it in a lot of these smell related blends with cannabis, like vetiver, patchouli for sure, top two, bergamot, which is basically, let's be real, pomelo, more or less the same. Not exact, maybe a little limey.
I get you. Yeah. Same, very same vibe, like citrus leaning.
Yeah, it's like, ah.
Yeah, no, I'm mostly interested in how they're using this cannabis. No, I like some people say Kush. Okay, well, a bag or in the air or on the jacket or on the plant or as an extract or as an idea of like what the fuck, like if somebody says orange, I have a better idea than if someone says Kush, and they're both equally as vague. So I think that's why we got to really put our nose to this one and find out what the big deal is, right? Did they get it right? It's for us to say.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm really glad you said that because something I wanted to talk to you about today is this little rabbit hole that I started diving down this week
Oh, good.
from this company. I have my notes here.
Okay.
It's this company called Osmo. Okay. And they've been working with AI and Google to develop digital scent mapping. Okay. So, like you just said, is this Kush fresh in the garden? Is this Kush like cured? Is it from the jar? Is it like a leaf? Is it all these things, all of these factors? Okay. And the thing about this digital scent mapping is what they're trying to do is create a situation where you can get a computer AI to print a smell for you based on digital mapping they've been doing in like the Google sphere. Okay, I'm going to try to use real words to explain this.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Okay.
really
Now,
abstract,
yes.
and I'm not even convinced it's real, like at all. But supposedly they've developed some degree of it enough to announce it. So, like, the idea in this digital olfaction research, okay, is that they want to be able for you to capture a smell using GC technology, gas chromatography, which we know is in existence, we know is currently being used, but we also know that it's big. These are not little teeny tiny blood picker machines you can fit in your pocket. These are like massive room sized machines. So they've created one where you can take a snapshot of a smell. The GC machine automatically breaks it down into its molecular components,
Okay.
okay, using AI analysis. And then it gets sent to a printer that prints the smell for you. And the craziest fact in this whole story is that the printer is very specifically the size of a fridge. Okay, this is just like it's in every single thing you read about this thing is like the printer is the size of a fridge. And I'm like, I'm not even sure any of this is real, but because they're saying, oh, it's fridge sized, all of a sudden it's like maybe it is real. So I'm just letting you know, but it is this is real. This is real research that's happening. And part of what they're trying to do is digitize scents. So like if you said the words Kush leaf, it has been had all of these smells inputted into it. Of like there's like 40 billion smells in the world and we've only discovered like 100 million of them, right? Plus we know that smells can also be invented. So actually the number of smells in the world is completely unlimited. It's infinite because we can invent new smells at any time. And part of the work that this machine they want it to do is to create smells that no one else has ever smelled before and then print them with quote superhuman accuracy.
Okay. Great. I like that because it's like the idea of something, a scratch and sniff ham and cheese sandwich isn't even close. So give me that superhuman accuracy.
Yeah. No, but then there's so much nuance to it because the idea is that the AI can predict what a molecule smells like So just from its structure. So they're trying to input, like this is actually happening. They're inputting all these smells into this Google Cloudscape using AI to analyze its molecular components so that you could later take a snapshot of a smell and this AI system would know what it is and be able to basically print it. Like we don't even have a word for what it is that it would do.
This is so crazy to me because we get a grapefruit and you take a snapshot of it, and now we're seeing we've analyzed the quantity of like nucotone in one sniff, and then it's going to go and print that amount onto some other thing, so I'm getting the same impact of that same VOC. Okay, great. I hope they do. And I will move my refrigerator into the garage so I have space for the printer if I need to. And people can just fax me scents all day.
That's literally it. And what they want to be the end product is sort of like a pocket-sized Headspace type machine, right? Like where you can absorb the smell and then store the smell and then be able to recreate the smell like at any time, pretty much. Like they want to create it to be like a Polaroid. And the idea is like, we've seen so much progress towards the other senses and ways to enhance our experiences. So an example they used in one of their blogs was like discovering how hearing works and creating like hearing aids and creating like health related devices. So another thing they reference on this website is like they're working on inventing a smell that repels mosquitoes. So it's actually like a perfume that you could spray on that only a mosquito could smell. So like the dog whistle of the scent world, but for mosquitoes. So like, but it's so abstract that even though they're actively doing this research and they're actively inputting all of these smells into this cloud, it's so abstract that we don't have words for it. So they're comparing it to things like hearing aids and Polaroids and printers and refrigerators, which are arguably not that futuristic of devices. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, good. We got to start somewhere. You can't be like, this is the VR of scents. Like, what does that even mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's the thing. Like they can't be like, use imaginary things to describe imaginary things. But yeah, it's on the go. And I went to the website. Osmo is this crazy startup that is trying to make this crazy thing happen. But we've seen a lot of failure in this avenue in the past. Lest we forget, scratch and sniff stickers, I'd call that a success. That was pretty futuristic at the time. I still think they're fun.
Yeah. They're made of micro encapsulated scent that is embedded in the surface of the sticker. So when you scratch it, you're popping all of those little capsules and smelling it. That's why the scent wears away, because it can only be scratched and sniffed so many times.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I love a scratch and sniff sticker, but we haven't, I don't know what to call the most recent, craziest, coolest invention. I mean, gas chromatography, I think it's circa 1960 is when they started to develop that tech. Don't quote me on that one, but it's certainly not new.
No. We have GC by GC now, which just adds another layer of that. I don't think that's that new. Maybe 2015, but that's a guess.
Like there's not the tech has developed, but not in the sort of like entertainment arena, more like in the science arena. So this is like a step towards lifestyle.
Yes.
Products.
Right. Okay. So at CES this year, there was a company that had this ridiculous necklace that you wore that had pods in it and essentially small fans. And it was to complement VR, and it would atomize scent in front of your face while you were using it. And they had some combination where they had some way to combine the scents if you care to, and adjust the potency or like how quickly the fans are moving or whatever. And they were going to launch on some crowdfunding thing soon. And I just thought, we're so far away from this being interesting. I don't want to play an entire video game where I get 6 cents. It's like, oh, I'm in the level with blueberries now. It's like, who cares? That's nothing, right? And the fact that these pods were like $30 a piece. So now I'm spending $200 just to like have a whiff of a baked pie or something.
Right. Yeah. And that is certainly not new. Okay. Maybe it's like battery powered, but in the 70s, they tried to launch Smell-O-Vision, where they were pumping aromatics into movie theaters during key scenes of the movie, and everyone got violently ill because during the breakfast scene, they were pumping in the smell of oranges. And then not 20 minutes later in the lunch scene, they're eating a tomato soup, but the oranges haven't dissipated. And now you're literally suffocating people with the smell of tomatoes. So it's like people got violently ill because the smells didn't dissipate and it really didn't work. It just hasn't really been successful. So, I mean, maybe Google knows something we don't. I'm sure Google knows a lot of things that we don't know. But I mean, like when it comes to smell, like maybe there's some secret tech that they're developing. But as far as I can tell right now, if I've learned anything about AI, it's a lot of big promises and not a lot of follow through.
Yeah, you can say that again.
It's kind of like dating. So I'm just gonna not put my trust in the AI, but I did look up to see if they were hiring. Osmo is hiring various scientific roles. Nothing fun.
Yeah, not someone with a killer nose to start making lists of scents that they need to smell. Set your Google alerts. You never know.
Yeah, there was no opinion position, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, well, one of my kind of like B stories that I was looking at today, I think kind of relates to this a little bit. And I'm going to get the name of it right here. It is a scented water bottle called Air Up. Have you seen or heard of these? Apparently they have gone viral a few times. They've sold out. They're really, according to my research, they're popular amongst elementary kids in the UK. It's like a status thing. Air Up water bottles are a water bottle that has a neck where you incorporate a scented pod, and they have like 30 different flavors. Cola is their most popular, blueberry, like apple cinnamon, all kinds of weird flavors, mostly kid focused things. And what it does is it's pulling in a small amount of air in through the pod as you're sucking the water through the straw. So it's adding fragrance to your water. And as we know, fragrance is like 90 or 80% of our perception of flavor and taste. So you're getting like a sensation of flavor without ingesting calories, I guess is their whole thing, or without actually having a thing. Part of their marketing is like, you don't need to be drinking juice all day. You could just pop a juice flavored pod onto this and have water. So the whole thing is kind of gross, but popular.
Okay. So as soon as I hear the word pod, I'm out. Like as soon as I heard pod, I feel like pods are so 2015.
Yeah, and just that like ecosystem of having to like repurchase it all of the time. When I first saw this thing, I thought, okay, it's for little kids like toddlers, and it's a water bottle that smells like a strawberry or something. And, and I thought, oh, okay, that's a little weird. But then when I saw that it's a whole system where they want you to continue purchasing flavors, and you're like, hey, look, I have green apple in mine today or whatever. I don't know. I'm turned off by the whole idea, but it is a thing. It's out there.
I just think it's funny because, like I like my fizzy water. Like I'm like a bubbly LaCroix drinker. And, there's that sort of ongoing joke about how these like flavored waters are just like as if you were holding a strawberry and you just blew strawberry scent at water because it's like barely there. It's just like the idea of a flavor, which is literally what this is. What you're describing is the idea of flavor.
Yeah, truly it is. Yes.
We took some water, poured it out of a scented candle jar, and now it smells like the candle, but doesn't taste like anything.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm looking at the pods here. It seems like they mostly sell them in variety packs. Iced tea, peach, cola, cherry, watermelon. See, I kind of hate that you said soda water because I drink so many of these like barely flavored soda waters, and they are all being like fragranced and flavors with like these exact same agents. So now I'm like, shoot, I've already been cucked into the pod system. They're just dripping it into each one.
Okay, but you know what you have to look forward to? A big announcement this week was the rise of chili flavors. So in the next coming months, you might see some chili flavored pods for your chili scented water bottle.
Are you being real? Because this sounds like a real thing.
I'm being real.
But
I'm being really not the pod part. The pod part I can't speak to. I haven't signed any NDAs. I just don't know anything about pods really. It's the no chili and capsaicums, which we've talked about in the past because most companies will not fuck with spice. They will not fuck with spice. And we know this because savories are really hard to recreate because most flavor and fragrance houses will not fuck with chili. I mean, you make a chili scented fragrance, you made pepper spray. So a lot of places just won't mess with that. And that is actually how we used to make pepper spray at the store I used to work at. So it's very easy to do. Recipes to follow. But no, their chilies are coming up right now. So what they're thinking is you're going to start to see some of your favorite flavored things, like large scale manufactured things like a cheese chip. We're going to start to see more spice incorporated because there's been like a whole new line of these capsaicum inspired resins and resin powders that are safe for use in food.
Oh, that's cool because you know that it's, I mean, for one, it's a hazard to be around like a ghost pepper flavored chip or whatever. The people who have to add that flavoring to those chips are putting themselves in harm's way to do so. So to make them easier to work with, great. Now it's easier for manufacturers to want to bring them onto their lines or whatever. Yeah. We've developed this flavor for spicy stuff. So good. Put it on all the things. I have not tried the new mango flavored Doritos, but I do.
Oh, no.
I do want to try them for the record. I will eat them. Will I eat a whole bag of them? No. Please, if you see me in public and you have a bag, offer me one so I don't have to purchase it. But yeah, I got to try it.
We don't have them here. They're not here yet.
Yeah, for a reason. They're like, load these off on the Americans. They'll eat anything.
Oh, that's scary. I'm like, they're like red dye number 666. Watch out.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, okay. I do like that spicy stuff is in. Starbucks had like a spicy refresher thing that they just dropped recently. And so I did try one. And it was basically a sweet pineapple juice with freeze-dried bits of pineapple in it and a heavily spiced syrup that was like pretty thick to the point that it sank to the bottom of the drink. Now, I pride myself in my iron stomach. Chili dogs, boom, no problem, right? I literally never had heartburn. I don't know what it is. This Starbucks thing, I drank like a third of it. I felt genuinely terrible. It just like irritated my stomach in a way that I was like, do people feel this way when they eat things they're not supposed to? So, I mean, at your own risk, I would avoid it if possible. But I do like the Tajinification I'm seeing across like all of the grocery items.
I mean, I can never be mad at anything Tajin inspired. I think it's like the perfect combination of flavors. There's not, find me a spice mix greater than Tajin. You know what I mean? Like there's really maybe chai. I don't know. If I really thought about it, I can make like a top 5 that are like equally amazing. But like Tajin really is top tier best flavors of all time. But Ryan, we're boycotting Starbucks. What are you doing at fucking Starbucks?
No, hey, look, I know this. But also I'm in circles where people will just show up with drinks and hand them to you. And I'm like, okay, all right. I will try this. It does got spice in it.
Ugh. Disgusting.
Hey, I threw 2/3 of it away.
Okay, that's certainly one way to look at it.
I'm just trying to rationalize it here.
Have you ever tried pulque? Have you ever heard of pulque?
No, tell me more about this.
Oh, it's super weird and super globby, but so delicious. It's like a fermented agave that is commonly drank in Mexico, but it's like alcoholic because it's like fermented to the point of becoming like an alcoholic beverage. And it's not really chunky. It just, if you think of like aloe and sort of like the texture of like an aloe gel, it's reminiscent of that because it's this pulque is like actually fermented. It's not like a flavor. It's like how do I describe? It's like if you're making lemonade, you make it with lemons, water, and sugar. If you're making pulque, you make it with this agave, and then it brews. It brews in some kind of urn. I actually don't know, but it's really, really fucking good. Let's bring back the pulque.
Yeah, I like the sound of it.
All I had to say. Just love it. Delicious.
I'm down. I mean, and I think that is kind of an interesting thing too, is we are seeing like an adoption of funkier spirits. Like we're really in the cocktail world, like in a space right now where everything is either funky or from like a very specific terroir, or is like a, hey, my dude just got this, or someone has adulterated something in a way that it's no longer that same thing. Like fat wash rums are really big right now, where you're like going to wash it with coconut oil. And so you've now got this rum with this really like soft, velvety texture. And then you put pineapple juice in there and maybe you've clarified that. So, we're seeing this crazy trend. What are you thinking, Amanda?
No, right. I'm actually dying. I can't believe that's a thing, because do you remember rum ham? Did you ever hear about rum hams?
Yes. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I discovered rum ham from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it kind of blew up, what, 6, 7, 8 years ago. It was like a big thing. And my friends at the time kept making jokes about rum hams. And I swear I've told you this story before, but it was my friend's birthday. It was Shirtless Jerry's birthday. And we had a professional chef who was living with us. And the chef was like, Jerry, I'm a professional chef. I'll make you anything you want for your birthday. Just name it. I'll get the things. I'll make you anything you can dream of. I'll make it. And Jerry thinks for one split second, looks at this award-winning chef and says, rum ham.
Rum ham.
And we did it. So you just soak an entire fucking ham in a big pot with rum. We got 2 handles of rum, popped it in, and you let it soak overnight. And then the idea is you eat the ham and you get drunk from eating the ham. And you do.
I do hope you added like some pineapple or something on top of this. Hey, pineapple and ham go together. I think the original rum ham had a pineapple slice skewered onto it.
No, someone who asked for rum ham for their birthday didn't care about the pineapple. So there was.
I gotta trust the birthday boy's wishes and the chef's discretion in this one. Yeah.
It was so gross. Getting drunk while eating is honestly kind of fucked up. And not only that, basically what happens is the rum soaks into the meat, and then what's left behind is sort of like the toxins of the meat, like because it's sitting in a liquid, right? And it's sitting overnight. And so it's like a very salty liquid. It's a very fatty liquid. And at some point, halfway through the ham, someone decided, let's bottle it and drink it. So we were passing around the juice, which made your lips so greasy, and it was so salty. And it was really, really fucked up, right?
There is a version of this where you filter out the fats like you would if you were going to fat wash something, right? So you're just left with the liquid that has that like velvetyness and the smokiness from the ham. And let's be real, the saltiness. And then maybe you do like an 80% pineapple liqueur, 20% rum ham topper with like a maraschino cherry chaser. And hey, you've just made this thing work on bar menus across the US at least. I don't know if anybody else is doing this.
That's why I was laughing, because when you were describing it, it sounded really luxurious and velvety and delicious. But I've seen some shit.
You're like, the reality, not so pretty. No, I'm actually glad you brought that up. That lets me talk about my engine oil gin.
Oh.
Which was this is not news, but it leads me into kind of like what's happening right now. So engine oil gin is a gin that came in an engine oil bottle, like the metal tin canister. There was a couple years ago a notorious glass bottle shortage because of COVID. So some people got clever and started putting booze into other things, and this is one of them. But they gave it a real like motor oily type scent while still being gin. So it's, it's juniper, it's got sage and citron. Then they did like green apple and lavender with like vanilla. So it's like heady camphorous palate, bitter throughout, singed oily rosemary leaves, creamy licorice root. So I say all of that because that kind of walks the line between like, great, we've got a gin that you want to drink. we're putting it in a motor oil tin, so let's have fun and lean into like those greasy, oily, licoricey flavors that you might find in that whole space. But Mischief these days has been releasing scents that are not like wink, wink, nod, nod. This is a little bit like engine oil. This is our WD-40 scent. It smells like WD-40. It legit, like, we have worked with flavor scientists to distill this down to that like oily vanillin type scent, and then bottled it up and did a little wink at WD-40 about it. And if you go on Fragrantica, which is like my favorite crowdsourcing scent site, all of the responses are like, why would you do this? And then the next response would be like, why wouldn't you do this? And then a lot of people being like, this could literally just be WD-40 in the bottle. It smells exactly like it. Yeah, they also did a Fabuloso scent that smells like the floor cleaner. But yeah, it's sort of something a lot of people are doing right now. There was a group of Australian artists who are just now bottling a new MacBook smell that they worked with like plastics companies to get the aroma for. So none of these things are fragrances that you would want to smell. But if we're building a catalog of all of these scents, I mean, why wouldn't these get added to it?
That is really interesting. All of those smells are in the book Revelations in Air, the Jude
Sure,
Stewart book.
yeah, they are.
Because I think that what you're highlighting is some seriously iconic modern day aromatics that people are curious about. The new MacBook it feels so dystopian to me, but I get what the shtick is about that. It's just a little too dystopian in the current state of the world. But Jude Stewart talks about that off-gassing of the brand new plastics in the chapter about new car smell, because it's a coveted smell here in North America where we want that new car smell, that leather. But what we're experiencing is literally factory off-gassing, where for most other things like clothing and other countries, they let the plastics and materials off gas in the factory and then ship it out so it doesn't have that disgusting, literally toxic factory smell. Whereas here, we love it. But in the book, they talk about how I think it was in Japan or somewhere, let's say in most other countries outside of Canada and the US, outside of North America, they do not want that smell, because that is actually a sign that it didn't go through its full manufacturing process and that it wasn't off-gassed before it arrived. So that's really funny that something like a new Mac smell is something that people would take the time to develop. It feels very Americana, North Americana.
Yeah, it feels very fall of capitalism.
Like,
I mean,
put that in a time capsule and fucking send it into space. Like,
this is something we got really excited about. It was our reward for spending $2,000. Yeah, and I don't know. I think that there are associated pleasing moments and memories with these sort of things, and to be able to evoke that with just like a little perfume strip is pretty exciting. I've noticed the petrichor type scents, like earthy, rocky scents, had hit fragrance, I don't know, 10 years ago to more like 20 years ago, where you would have something that smelled like a wet rock, which is kind of crazy, but really like your nose just picks it up right away. And I recently like got some deodorant that smells like that. And it's kind of neat to see these sort of like luxury smells, or whatever we want to call it, these like trending scents sort of trickle down into like everyday products in a way that you're like, oh, I really like the smell of that.
I would just really prefer for them to be named more aptly. You know, like instead of new Mac smell, we could call it, suffering in the Congo.
Amanda, this is your art project, and it could really draw some attention to some things. And I encourage you to run with it.
Okay, but let's see. So if someone goes to the trouble of making that smell, that means that that's a smell that they wanted to make. And I know that like Mischief, their branding is kind of just like the uncanny, the unexpected. They don't necessarily want that smell, but I get like it's art. Their whole thing is it's like performance art. It's performative and it's unique but high quality. That's their products are a very high quality product. Given that Google is making waves with this new AI smell printer, like, is there something that comes to mind that you just wish that you could capture and print?
You know, as much as I like going and sitting down at the perfume counter and having somebody like surf me up a bunch of sprays to my face, I would rather be doing that here with you. You know, and saying, "Oh, hey, have you smelled this? Print, 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 print that, hit that. Oh, hey, I'm gonna put some like limonene and lavender together." And you know, we're formulating sometimes, and you're really far away from me. And so sometimes I have to sit here and just recreate what you've made just to smell it. And that's a pain in the ass. I would rather you just like text it to me, you know?
Oh my God, that's so true.
And I think that that would speed things up for a lot of industries. And, you know, I'm always talking about having that conversation of like what a peanut butter and jelly sandwich tastes like to someone in Japan and having the right language to discuss that with. And there's not a lot of common language that we can use for those flavors. So it makes things very difficult. And it makes things a million times easier if we're just hitting send.
That's a good point. That is a good point. All right. I can take
Yeah. What would you like to see? And I mean, I also want to preview menus at my house and be like, what does this restaurant smell like?
You know, it's also funny because I like that you akined it to a fax machine. Again, it's like this weird moment where we're like, there really aren't words to describe what it is that we're talking about that aren't like, oh, I want you to fax it over so I could play it in my VCR. Like, I don't know. The struggle is real. Not an email, a fucking smell of fax. No, I have one iconic aroma that for me is forever coveted. I think about it every day.
Ooh, yes. What is this?
It is literally the smell of a sweet breeze. I just love a summer fucking meadow and a little gust of wind. There is nothing, I don't get that here. We don't, I don't live in a place with summer meadows as I look out the window at freaking Gotham City. So I would love some summer meadow. Like if a true, not like a fucking scented candle summer meadow. I mean, the sweetest breeze of summer. And I have an iconic location in mind. I know exactly which one and where.
That's the thing I hope we can do is drop a pin. Go, okay, drop it in this meadow. Cool. What time of year is it? What time of day is it? Because all of those things affect what you're going to smell. And so, you know, when I hear of like us printing smells, I don't know, man. It sounds like how we're always complaining about how terpene tests only show a part of the scent. It's going to be a really long time, I think, until we have really cracked the code on everything that scent evolves and like the magic that happens between your nose and something that smells amazing.
Yeah, I think that really truly sums it up how I feel about it, because I have the sense that what this type of project will be used towards is mass manufacturing, mass scents, mass products, consumer goods, not the magic of a moment. Right? Like, even though what they're trying to sell is this magical moment, that's not actually what they're, by breaking down a smell into its molecular components to recreate it, that's not going to be a summer's breeze, regardless of how hard the AI works to try to recreate that. Like, there is a lot of magic to smell, and arguably why we haven't quite pinned it down yet. But I like the idea of inventing new smells through creating these recipes. So it's like, this seems like it'll take a lot of the chaos out of it in terms of like new scent creation, things that we've never smelled before. And I would like to just go on like a nice international new smell tour exploration. I still really want to get my hands on that ISOE, which is one of the more famous recreated, or one of the most famous scents that was ever invented from nothing.
Oh,
It's like never existed. They created it. It's like its own unique smell. It's prohibitively expensive, but one of these days I really want to give it a whiff.
yeah. Hey, let's track some down for you. I mean, what else is there but to track it down and get your nose in it?
Yeah. So yeah, wow, that's a lot of good smell news. I feel actually inspired right now. Do you have any other fun facts or smell visions for us?
You know what? The last thing I had was really just more examples of that same thing, and it was like how Comme des Garçons had gone ahead and made things that smell like soda pop, garages, that sort of thing. Just more weird scents that people are willing to build. And so, hey, we have perfumers or we have experts that can put their nose to something and create something that is evocative of a garage. So that does give me hope that perhaps that we could do that on like a faster version or a Polaroid type thing where we could examine something and get a pretty good proximity of it in a way that I can smell it and go, oh, wow, you've really transported me somewhere. And even that is just novel enough, even if it's not like a smell microphone that you're holding out to like a field of wildflowers in the middle of Oregon. And I'm like huffing that in like it's the portal between New York and Denmark, was that?
What?
You saw the art installation that went up in the last couple of weeks. It was just a huge portal between New York City.
Oh, I thought you meant the smell. No, the portal that got taken down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, someday with smells, hopefully. And it will also get taken down for the same reasons.
Oh my God. Because the portal in New York, people kept showing their butts. They were mooning. And how many farts are going to get portaled? Probably a lot.
Yeah, I mean, these technologies are, following the rest of technology, probably going to appear in pornography first, and then trickle down to video games, and then eventually you'll get it at like some connection to your laptop or whatever, so you can preview perfumes before you buy them.
That's so fucking funny. I love that. Can't wait. Can't wait to send you some farts in a jar, Ryan.
I'm not opening packages for the next month, just to be safe.
Never trust a jar. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of The Smoking Spot. If you've stuck around this long, like, comment, subscribe, and you can find us on Instagram at @the.smokingspot.
Yeah, find us over there. Send us your favorite scent, and I want to hear about it.
Say no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find your smoking spot.
Hey, Smoking Spot fans. We're here to tell you about the newest launch from Centelligence Projects.
Over the last year, we've created the Cannabis Aroma Wheel. It's a sensory tool designed to help connoisseurs take their knowledge to the next level. So whether you're a bud tender, dispensary owner, cultivator, or you just love the smell of weed, you can better appreciate the cannabis in front of you.
Get your copy of the most detailed sensory tool built specifically for the cannabis industry and order your Cannabis Aroma Wheel today at centelligenceproject.com.